This is the Seco program's Engine Performance 1, Engine Mechanical Tests and Tools. This is a gasoline 4-stroke engine, and as the name implies, it needs 4 strokes in order to run correctly. This is the intake, compression, power, and exhaust strokes. To run and run well, every internal combustion gas engine needs the correct timing and the correct amount of air, fuel, and spark, but it also needs compression. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to measure compression and perform another basic mechanical test to make sure an engine is up to peak operating condition. Before performing a compression test, you're definitely going to want to consult service information for the year, make, and model that you're working on. They will provide you with the minimum compression spec and helpful tips to make sure that you're doing the test correctly. On the right, you're seeing steps that most manufacturers want you to do to perform a correct compression test. Remove all the spark plugs. This helps the engine crank at maximum speed. You're definitely going to want to disable the fuel injectors so you don't wash down the cylinder walls with fuel and make the compression numbers worse. Most manufacturers recommend opening the throttle to wide open throttle in order to get as much air into the cylinders as possible. Incidentally, this also, for most manufacturers, usually puts the vehicle into clear flood mode and shuts the injectors off. If this manufacturer that you're working on does not do that, you're going to want to disable the injector separately. Install your compression tester hose into the cylinder's spark plug hole and crank the engine for a minimum of 5 puffs. Compare your readings to specifications. Then decide what's next in the diagnostic process for this vehicle. Let's take a quick look at a compression tester kit. This is a snap-on kit that we have in Seco, and as you can see, it has 3 adapters. Make sure that the adapter that you're using is the same length or shorter than the spark plug that you took out, or engine damage could result. Here's the gauge on the compression tester, and we're going to be doing a compression test in a second. Here we are performing a static or cranking compression test, and as you can see, this cylinder is only capable of producing about 125 psi. The spec is 180 for this Honda, and that is not acceptable. If you have low compression on one or more cylinders, you're definitely going to want to consult service information to see if there's any technical service bulletins that apply to your condition. If not, the next step would be a wet compression test. When performing a wet compression test, you squirt a little oil into the cylinder and perform a compression test again. If the compression raises significantly, you have a possible ring or cylinder wall issue. Next up would be a cylinder leakage test. A cylinder leakage test, or a cylinder leak down test, is going to help you pinpoint the exact cause of your low compression numbers. A cylinder leakage test is a test that uses air being induced into a cylinder to measure the amount of loss. To do the cylinder leakage test, you should consult service information for your year, make, and model. Remove all spark plugs, the oil cap, air cleaner, and coolant pressure cap. Open the throttle to wide open throttle. Start with number 1 cylinder, top dead center of the compression stroke. Install the tester's hose into the cylinder that's being tested. Make sure you calibrate the tool and connect to the adapter hose. Once you induce air into the cylinder, measure the percentage and listen for the air loss. Be sure to document your percentages and compare them to manufacturer specs. One helpful tip: it is wise to go in the engine's firing order. By doing this, you will save a lot of time because the next cylinder that you're about to test will always be coming up to top dead center compression stroke. Pictured here is a 2-gauge cylinder leakage or leak down tester. The gauge on the left is regulating shop air pressure, and the gauge on the right is measuring the percentage of air loss for your cylinder. The cylinder leak down tester that you're looking at here has one single gauge, and it just measures percentage leakage. You adjust the regulator knob until it reads 0 and then connect it to the cylinder. This is the typical cylinder leak down tester hose adapter. You want to make sure that you remove that valve core before performing a cylinder leak down test. This is the same adapter with the valve core removed. Now you're ready to perform the test. A normal tire valve core tool will take that out. And what you're seeing here is a dual gauge cylinder leakage tester with a cylinder leak down test being performed, and we have about 70% leakage in this cylinder. This also had low compression numbers, and it did rise up a little bit with some oil in the cylinder, and what we found was air leaking out of the crankcase in 2 spots, which was the oil fill hole and the dipstick tube. We also had all the spark plugs out, so we held a piece of paper over the spark plug next to it, and we seen air coming out of there because air was passing by the rings and up past the rings next to it. When performing a cylinder leakage test, make sure you consult service information, just like most tests that you're going to perform on vehicles today. But the specs to the right are typical specs for most car manufacturers. Test results of 15 to 20% leakage is basically considered normal on most engines. If you do have loss that's above what is considered normal, make sure you check the areas indicated below. A throttle body would indicate intake valve issues. Air coming from the exhaust would indicate possible exhaust valve issues. Air coming from the oil cap or dipstick tube would indicate a possible cylinder wall or ring issue. And air or bubbles entering the cooling system would indicate a head gasket, a possible cracked head, or cracked block. Here's something I want to show you just to make your life a little easier, and it is a remote starter switch. This switch can be hooked up and allow for easy cranking of the engine for you to find top dead center when doing a cylinder leak down or leakage test, and also for doing a compression test. With modern vehicles that have ECM controlled starter circuits, this is a real good tool for you because the engines want to just continue to crank. This allows you to do it manually and to bump the engine over lightly to find top dead center compression stroke. It's easy to hook up. You hook up one lead to the starter battery terminal and the other lead to the starter S terminal that engages the solenoid. Well, that's it. This doesn't cover everything that you need to know with compression testing and cylinder leak down testing, but I hope it helps you quite a bit and you use this information in the lab and at work. And don't forget to consult service information when servicing vehicles.